Hey everybody, I wanted to share with you all a recipe that I've come across lately, which I'm really enjoying. So about a year ago I discovered that I have an allergy to yeast, and so being a bread eater that I am, I had to give up bread pretty much for a really long time, and then I discovered that there are all kinds of hacks and ways to make bread without using yeast. And so I have been perfecting and adapting a particular recipe that takes very little. It only takes 7 different ingredients, and it only takes about 10 minutes to prepare and 2 hours to cook in a slow cooker. And I know that sounds a little strange, but I can't wait for you to see this. So stay tuned. Here I go. I'm going to show you how to make it, and then you can make it yourself, especially those who are stuck at home and have all these regular ingredients and can't get to the store to buy bread or something like that. So I'm really excited to share this with you. So stay tuned. Here we go. Okay, folks, I have poured out 4 cups of flour. What I'm using here is called wheat flour. Okay, see if I can get that there for you. If you're in Korea, this is what it looks like. Okay, if you're not and you're just watching this from somewhere else, you can use any kind of flour. I'm using just a standard wheat flour that could be used for dumplings, skins, or noodles, or pasta, or things like that. Okay, so that's ingredient number 1. Ingredient number 2 is going to be salt. So we're going to have 2 teaspoons of salt. So I've got my teaspoons here. Nice flattened off salt. Okay. And then I'm actually going to add some sugar. Now you can choose not to use this, but this sugar just adds a little bit of just a little bit of sweetness to the bread. Okay. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use 3 tablespoons because it's a pretty big loaf, and it's really nice. It gives it a nice evened out flavor. Okay. What I'm doing, if you'll notice, is I'm putting together all the dry ingredients first. Okay. Now the very secret ingredient that I use instead of yeast is just good old-fashioned baking powder. Okay. So anyone overseas, you should be able to get baking powder anywhere. Okay. And in baking powder, you need to get 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, so I'm gonna scoop that out. That's a little bit more than a single one, so I'm just gonna make that my half. Okay, and then I have all of my dry ingredients in there together now. Okay, now one of the things that's particularly interesting here is you need to have a half a cup of melted butter, so I've gone ahead and melted that butter and have it ready to go. It just adds a nice rounded out flavor to it. Okay, and then you're going to need 2 cups of milk. So this is my half cup spoon that I'm using here. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Makes 2 full cups. Okay, and then the last ingredient is hot. Okay, sorry, I had to get the hot water off the kettle, off the stove. So this could be hot or warm water. I tend to use hot because then it kind of activates it a little faster. It's just half a cup. Okay, now ironically, this is something that's left over from my days of reading it as a yeast recipe, because that hot water would often activate the yeast. But I found that if I use cool water and do this, it doesn't come out as fluffy. So I still use the warm or hot. Okay, so what I've done is I've just taken a standard butter knife, because I used it to cut the butter earlier for when I melted, and I've just started mixing all of that goodness together. Okay, and then I'm going to take this batter mixer on my mixer and just really get it mixed in there good together. Okay, now you don't have to overdo this because the more lumps you have in it, the more air will be in it, and the more once the air is in it, then you get some nice, holes in your bread, which makes it so nice when you toast it and things like that. So here I go. I'm just gonna mix this together a bit. Okay, so I have cleaned off my my batter mixer from my hand mixer, okay? Just going around making sure I get as much of the dough here onto my. I've kept this knife ready because I'm gonna need it in a minute to put the knife into this. So I've got a standard sort of mid-sized slow cooker or crock pot. I believe when I read it, it's in Korean, so I'm not sure, but I think it's a 3.2 liter. Okay, so this is how big this is. This is a really important step though, because if you don't do this, you're never getting your bread out. So I'm taking a wax or cooking paper. They call it cooking foil here in Korea. And I'm just gonna simply, just roughly put this down here. This allows us to lift the bread out. This allows us to lift the bread out when it's finished, okay? It doesn't have to be super neat. It just needs to cover the bottom and come up just a few centimeters or inches on the sides, okay? And then I'm just gonna simply take this and I'm just gonna dump it just the way it is, straight in like this, okay? There we go. Most of it's already going in, okay? And I'll just go through and get the last little bits, okay? And then what I'm gonna do, guys, is kind of spread this around to try to fill it in to the little voids that we have in the wax paper. Okay, it's pretty thick, it's pretty dense. That's what happens when you get, you know, non-leaven bread that doesn't have yeast in it, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of spread this around. It's gonna end up flattening out some as it cooks, okay? And so what I'm now gonna do is, in a moment, I'm gonna put it in my slow cooker, turn it on high for 2 to 2.5 hours, and then I'm gonna have some lovely bread to eat.
2 hours later.
Okay guys, it's been 2 hours and our bread is almost ready. One thing I forgot to mention when I was preparing was that when you put it into the crock pot, one of the things you want to do is take a little bit of olive oil or some oil or even some melted butter and drizzle it on the top. It kind of fills into the holes there, okay? And that just makes it feel nice, but it's nice and firm. I can go around and feel that. Now, on the bottom, on the sides, it's completely done, but the top is just a touch damp or moist. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna place that onto a cookie sheet. This is what I'm doing now, okay? So I've got this cookie sheet, and all I'm gonna do, as you can see, the bread's got a nice brown texture on the sides, okay? Let me move this out of the way. And so all we're gonna do is we're gonna take the paper off of this. That's all you do, it just slides right off, okay? So it just slides right off, boom, there we go. And I'm gonna actually put this in the oven for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna broil it on top, and then it will be nice and crispy. So here we go. Okay, so you can see here that I have finished it off by putting it in the oven for just 5 to 6 minutes. I broiled it. It's quite hot now, or I would cut it. I then just take a sharp knife and I cut it into the kind of slices that I want. And it's really great to eat with all kinds of things, and it can be used for, healthy snacks for your kids. You could also do this with your kids if you've got children or you want to do an extra activity at home for fun. But also, it's so easy to make. I was able to let the slow cooker do all the work, and then here I am with a fresh loaf of bread, no yeast, but look how it's risen. So there you have it. It was super easy and incredibly delicious. So I really hope that you give it a try, and I would love to hear how it turns out for you. So please give it a try and let me know how it goes.